This is going to be our second fairness criteria. It's called the head-to-head criteria, or sometimes it's called the Condorcet criteria. That was the name of the guy who came up with it, his last name. So what this criteria says is it talks about if there is a candidate that wins when compared head-to-head against every other candidate. So as opposed to the majority criterion talked about if there's a candidate who has a majority of first choice votes. This is the particular candidate we're talking about. This one is if there is some candidate who wins head to head against every other candidate. So what that would actually look like, I put down here in parentheses, that would look like when we do our pairwise comparison test. Does that person win the point every single time that they're in a head-to-head, every time they're in a comparison? Do they win all of their points? Is what this would look like. And what this criteria says is if there is a candidate that satisfies that, then that candidate should be the winner. And it kind of makes sense from a fairness standpoint, right? If you as a candidate are preferred head-to-head to every other candidate, then it seems fair that we elect you as the winner of this voting system. So again, just like the majority criterion, it can either be violated or satisfied. So I just kind of want to write down what those look like, but it's basically the same idea that we had with the majority criterion. So it's violated, so this head-to-head criterion is violated in a particular example if such a candidate, so if there is someone who is the winner when compared to head against every other candidate, but does not win. In the example, versus there's two ways to satisfy it. So it's satisfied if such a candidate exists. So if there is someone who wins head-to-head against everyone else and they win, so and that candidate wins. In that instance, we would say that the criteria is satisfied. The other way that it is it is satisfied if no such candidate exists. So if there isn't a candidate who wins head-to-head against every other candidate, then automatically the system is, or this criterion is satisfied by that method. Because basically it doesn't say who should win. It just says whoever we end up deeming worthy based on that method. So those are the two ways to satisfy it. So again, it's just like the majority criterion. So if the person they say should win does exist, then they either win or don't win. So it's either satisfied or violated. Or if that person doesn't exist in that example, it's automatically satisfied in both cases. What we're going to do next is we're going to take a look at another kind of longer example where we're going to look at both this head-to-head criterion and we'll retake a look at the majority criterion. And that is the second example on the worksheet for section 14.2. So it's on the back page of that worksheet. And we're going to go ahead and work through that whole thing in the next video. Since there's lots of parts to it, we'll do it in a separate video. But this is our second fairness criterion, excuse me. And then what we're going to do after that example is we'll come back and we're going to talk about kind of big picture, this idea of fairness and this idea of whether or not various voting methods are fair.